You know what movie I didn't get to make? Unplanned. I would have loved to have made that movie, Abby Johnson. It is a privilege to be here with you today and to have Abby Johnson as the MC. One thing is clear to me being here today. Texas is the beating heart of a pro-life country, and Texas is leading the way on pro-life issues. This is like, I was just speaking in San Antonio and I raced here and I come here. This is like the pro-life Macy's Day Parade. People ask me, are you pro-life activist, an anti-abortion activist? And I always say, no, I'm an anthropologist. Our mission is very simple. It is to tell the truth about the human person, that every human being, from the moment of their biological beginning, is created in the image of God and has an incomparable beauty, dignity, and worth. This is too exciting. C.S. Lewis said that God must have put some sort of filter over our eyes, because if we could see each other as we are, every time we were walking down the street and came across another human being, we would fall to our knees in awe, because human beings are more beautiful and more precious than even angels. Today is a special day for me because not only is it a day that we celebrate the dignity of the child in the womb and the beauty of motherhood, but it was 32 years ago today I joined the United States Army as a young 17-year-old high school dropout in Fort Benning, Georgia. It was 32 years ago today I raised my right hand and became an infantryman. And the reason I joined the Army was a few weeks earlier, my high school girlfriend rode her bike several miles to my house and woke me up with the words, "I'm pregnant." As I was born to my mother when she was only 16. And so my dream as a little boy was always to have a family, as was my high school girlfriend's. So with the news of the pregnancy, we decided she would wear baggy sweaters and take vitamins, and I would enter basic training. And when I came back, we would tell our parents that she was pregnant. So I joined the Army and went off to basic training. And just a few weeks before I was to come home on a Sunday morning, I didn't go to church. I never went to church a day in my life growing up. So when I was they're giving me lots of instructions. Okay, look at this camera. I was looking at the wrong camera. Sorry, guys. So I didn't go to church as a kid. So on Sundays when the other soldiers went to church, I had pots and pans detail. And so with just a few Sundays left in basic training, just a few weeks left, I was in the kitchen cleaning pots and pans when a young man walked in and he told me to come out and answer the phone. My girlfriend had called and she was crying. She was crying like I had never heard anyone cry in my life. And the only way I can explain it to you is that her soul was crying. And she kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And her father said, "We know your secret and your secret's gone. I took Katie to get an abortion." My sergeant hung up the phone. I wasn't supposed to be on the phone, and I hit him. They dragged me into my captain's office, and I begged him to call the police. And he asked me, "Why would I call the police, Private? Don't you know that abortion is legal?" So here I was, a 17-year-old high school dropout infantryman. I'd never been to church a day in my life. I did not know that the child and the most vulnerable members of our family were abandoned to violence until I found out my own daughter was destroyed by the violence of abortion. And we know that our child was a girl because the abortionist, after the procedure, said, "By the way, your baby was a little girl." So from that day until this day, I have committed my life to getting in between the violent and the vulnerable, from the child in the womb to the families in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan. And it's been a beautiful privilege to stand with the vulnerable. You know, and with the recent election results, a lot of people have asked me, and I'm seeing all this news and social media, have you lost hope? I see a lot of despair. And I can say this, I have never been more hopeful, because the truth is we as a nation, be prepared to take extra time, that we have, as a nation, we have never been more pro-life. And the reality is that regardless of how dark the world becomes, that we are to be a light in the darkness. And the darker the world becomes, the further our light will shine. So I have never had more hope. So why are we here? What are all of these people? What do we know that our friends and families and neighbors don't know? The spirit of the age can be all powerful, and it can darken even the most brilliant minds. Our world has lost what it means to be a human person. Today is a celebration of the truth of the human person. Today is a celebration of the dignity of motherhood. And that's why I am here. And I have to say that I'm from Chicago. I lived for 31 years in Hawaii, and I feel like that is my home. But with the changes in our country post-COVID, I wanted my family to be in a place, a political community that I trusted for the safety of and well-being of my family. And that we chose Texas for that reason. Now, I was going to wear a cowboy hat, but I'm like, I cannot pull off a cowboy hat. But I got my Buc-ee's keychain, and so this is my symbol that I am a Texan now. And when I'm here, when I look at all these young people, Students for Life of America is an incredible organization, and it's a privilege just to stand right here in front of them. When I look at all these young people, I'm reminded of a trip I made several years ago while shooting a documentary in Iraq. With my organization, Movie to Movement, we were documenting the crimes of ISIS against the ethnic and religious minorities in the Nineveh Plains. And the Nineveh Plains is the ancient homeland of not only Christians. There are churches that have been there since the 1st century, but of Jews. There have been Jewish communities there since the Babylonian exile. And there are communities that have been there even longer, the Yazidi. And when ISIS was waging a brutal war against these minorities, we wanted to make sure that it was documented. And as I was following the Kurdish warriors, the Kurdish soldiers, the Peshmerga, as they pushed ISIS out of the Nineveh Plains, Yazidi families, Yazidi fathers followed behind us, hoping that their daughters would be liberated as the Peshmerga advanced. And so as I'm looking at all these cameras, that's what I was doing. I was managing camera crews, making sure everyone was safe and was shooting what they were supposed to be shooting. But then out of the corner of my eyes, I saw something that struck me. I saw a man light up. And I looked in a way that I had never seen anyone light up before. And as I looked to see what he was looking at, I saw a young girl being brought forward. And he was looking at his daughter for the first time in over a year. And at that moment, I stopped. I didn't want to invade this beautiful moment between this father and his daughter. So I looked at the soldiers. I looked at the Peshmerga, and they had old weapons. They had broken down vehicles. And I thought the only thing that stood between this girl and her destruction, between this father and a broken heart, were these men with their tattered weapons, broken down old vehicles. And I said to myself, I thank God. I thank God for the privilege just to look at them. Because these men, these heroes, are all that stand between a violent ideology and the destruction of this daughter, this young woman, and her father. And so as I'm talking to you, I can't see you, but as I hear these horns, they've counted over 500, 600 cars already. I look at all these cars filled with families that have come from all over Texas. I look at these people standing across the street, and I say to myself, I thank God for the opportunity just to look at them. Because the only thing that stands between vulnerable young women and that child in their womb and their destruction is that family honking that horn right there. And so what a privilege to stand here with them, to stand here in front of Students for Life of America, and to be with them. Now, I don't know how we do it on time. They said be prepared for more time. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And now I want to talk about hope. I have never been more hopeful, because as a Christian, I understand that evil is a deprivation. Evil is the absence of being. Ideologies of evil have the seeds of their own destruction within them. St. John Paul the Great said that when the Nazis invaded Poland, he knew that they wouldn't be there long because such a depraved, violent ideology could not last forever. And they disappeared. The 1,000-year Reich lasted less than 13 years. He said that when the Soviet tanks followed the Nazis in and occupied Poland, I know they too he said, Pope St. John Paul the Great said, I know that they too in my life will flee Poland, because this brutal totalitarian ideology of evil is a deprivation and has the seeds of its own destruction within it. And so today, when we look at the ideology of evil that controls 3 branches of government, controls the tech giant companies, it could seem like the odds are stacked against us. But think of the Soviet Union with its tanks, its countless submarines, with its countless armored divisions, with its 25,000 intercontinental ballistic strategic nuclear weapons. How daunting, how challenging did facing that ideology seem? But then in the blink of an eye, in our lifetime, in my lifetime, it disappeared. So there's one thing that I want to say to you, that as the world has become dark, as we have brutally denied the truth of the human person, we are called to stand against the ideology of the age, the spirit of the age that denies the truth of the human person, and proclaim to the world that every human being is created in the image and likeness of God and has an incomparable dignity, beauty, and worth. This is what we are called to do. This is how we express love of our neighbor in the political sphere and the social sphere. But as we do that, as all of the odds seem stacked against us, we can take comfort in knowing that this ideology of evil, like all ideologies of evil, is a deprivation, and the seeds of its own destruction are within it. And I can say with full assurance that in our lifetime, we will see full legal protection for the child in the womb from the violence of abortion. It's just an honor to be here, and I think my time is up. Aloha, Texas.